Hello, welcome back to Carlos and Lisa. I'm Lisa Remillard.
And I'm Carlos Amezcua. The water we drink, the air we breathe, our precious oceans, and these are all elements that are vital to our lives no matter where we live.
But they are more and more being polluted with something called microplastics. They are everywhere. Researchers have found microplastics not just in our oceans, but in our air, and believe it or not, even in our rainwater. And these microplastics are being uncovered from Alaska to Florida.
60 years ago, most of the items that found their way into our oceans were biodegradable, like wood, paper, or cloth. Now, metals and plastics are certainly in the ocean now, and don't break down easily. And when they do, they create something that you just mentioned called microplastics, tiny microplastics.
Tiny little particles.
Yeah.
So in fact, almost 18 billion pounds of plastics makes its way into the world's oceans every year. That's the equivalent of dumping a garbage truck full of plastic into the ocean every minute.
Yeah, well, so here's the problem. The fish and mammals in the ocean consume that microplastic, and then it goes up the food chain and winds up ingested by us. We will eat fish that contain microplastics. They're so small you can't see them.
Right.
Yeah.
It's costly, obviously, to clean up. California taxpayers alone spend more than $500 million a year on the problem, and it's obviously harmful to our health as well. Researchers
at California State University Channel Islands have been looking at the plastic pollution problem for years, and now they're banding together with other universities to find answers and solutions.
So joining us is one of the researchers who have been really looking at this for the last 6 years. Dr. Sean Anderson from Cal State University Channel Islands is here. Hi, Sean.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Thank
Great
you
to
for
have you
coming.
here.
Microplastics, exciting.
So, microplastics. So I mentioned food.
Yep.
That's like the number one thing I'm thinking to myself when I order a not tilapia. They don't sell that anymore.
No, right.
But
you can get it. It depends where you go.
But when you order a fish that you're going to eat, you look at it and you go, oh, it's perfectly fine. It comes from the ocean. It's clean as a whistle.
Right. No. Well, relatively speaking.
Yeah.
Right. So these microplastics have become what we call, have you guys heard of the term Anthropocene?
No.
So the Anthropocene is this term that's been getting increasingly popular the last couple of years. So it's a different geological era. So humanity has had such a big footprint on our planet that we're actually changing the very planet itself. So if some massive volcano blew up or some meteoroid hit the Earth and killed everything and everybody died, and some alien race came and looked at us, they could see the footprint of our civilization. The first one was the atomic testing. So we have this layer of radiation across wetlands, grasslands, everything. But now we have this other one which is made of plastic. So we have this lens of plastic that's being laid down around the planet, in the water, and the mountaintops, etc. That's a signature of what our society has done to our planet, what we're doing to our planet.
All right. Wow. What does that mean for the average person that is sitting here watching
Great question.
right now?
Great question. So we're just ending the first real big era of microplastic research. And that was, hey, is this stuff there? Is this stuff on the bottom of the ocean? Yes. Is it on every single beach in the world we've looked at? Yes. Is it in fish? Is it in beer? Is it in air? Yes. And so now we're moving to we've said, yes, now it exists and it's ubiquitous. Now the question is, what is it doing to us and the critters and that? So we're just starting to work on that. There's two things that are happening. One, we're beginning to do more specific tests in terms of what this might do to a little baby fish, little baby crab, what have you. The other thing that we're working on is trying to figure out doing apples to apples comparison. So right now, nerdy people like me go out and count plastic like this, and we go, oh yeah, it's here. But now we want to know, how much is in LA Harbor versus Ventura Harbor versus the Sierra Nevadas? Is it twice as much there? Is it half as much? What have you? And so that's what we're developing right now with folks from across the state and actually across the nation and some folks in Canada. And the question is, we're trying to make sure that we're all measuring the same thing in the same exact way so we can really accurately measure how much.
So the question is this more prevalent near population centers like LA and New York City
Great
and
question.
San Francisco?
Yes and no. So, for example, if we go out in the ocean, and take a chunk of water and we come back and look, we'll find a variety of things. So there's films, there's hair. I'm bald, but if I had hair, a lot of these microfibers look like, if you imagine if you buzzed my hair and then rebuzzed it, like little teeny tiny micro little slits of hair. That's everywhere. But when we get closer to the coast, closer to Los Angeles, closer to the continental shelf, we find much more of that than in the open ocean. That stuff is coming mostly, so plastics come from a variety of sources. That cup that falls in the ocean that breaks down, it's chunky, it's like this, it's a big, jaggedy shape. These microfibers, though, are coming from mostly our
clothing, right?
are washing, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely.
Wow.
So like what you're looking at, like these little tiny plastic things, like it almost looks like a thread, but
It
it's
is a
plastic
thread.
thread.
It's literally a thread. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly, absolutely. And so there's various sources of things, but this is the thready type stuff is absolutely coming from our washing machines, which go to our treatment plants. And the treatment plants are fantastic about sterile, killing viruses and bacteria and all that kind of good stuff, pulling out nutrients. But these plastics are so small, many of them get through the regular filtration mechanisms. And so then they go into the creek, and the creek goes in the ocean, et cetera.
Okay.
Wow.
There's another thing that your study found, which is that you found it in rain.
Yeah.
How the hell is it getting in rain?
Yeah.
Like, I don't. If it's in the ocean,
Isn't it too heavy to be in a cloud?
how does that work?
Apparently not. So the stuff. So we're not entirely sure, but the pieces that we find in the rain are in the air are smaller on average. The lengths are shorter than what we see in the water. So what we think's happening is this stuff. Again, it's ubiquitous, right? So it's in the dirt and it's in the water and it's in the whatever. Some of it is getting cast up. The wind blows, stuff gets up, and just like there's fine little pieces of dust in our rain, this stuff is suspended. And again, the thing that we have to remember with this is it's not that somebody dumped a bag of trash and it got in the water and then it floated down. This is a constant, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's this constant leaking of plastic, and so we think that's how it's getting into the air.
Now, you brought a basket of stuff. What's that all about?
Just various things. I show and tell. I just brought different examples of things.
That you find.
So we have broken down pieces of stuff. We have fibers that we talked about, but we also have stuff like these. These are nurdles. So these are when a company goes to make plastic, they buy this stuff, and then this goes into their. So this is what comes from the oil company, the natural gas plant, what have you, and then this stuff is then heated, squished, whatever, to made into your milk container.
So
and
that's a
stuff like that.
recycling thing.
Well, this comes from oil. So it directly comes from oil, and then this goes into the manufacturing. If we recycled that plastic, that would become recycled. But this is not. This is virgin. It's called so-called virgin plastic.
So virgin nurdle.
Yeah, virgin nurdle. That sounds like a strange Macarena dish or something.
It is. Okay, I want to talk about, because you also address it in your study, which is what happens when we do ingest this. And the fact of the matter is, we're ingesting tens of thousands of these plastics every day.
Yeah.
So what is it doing to us physically?
There's a couple different things. So first thing to say is the plastics in general represent every single type of known toxicity that we've discovered over the years, except for radiation. They're not radioactive, but everything else. So on one level, if we're a turtle and we say ingested some of this, we could actually physically block our gut or our breathing apparatus. So when you can get smothered. If it's small enough that you don't get smothered, but it goes in your digestive tract, you can't. Two things. One, this in and of itself, this plastic has toxins associated with it. Things that make it flex and things that make it clear and all this jazz. Yeah. Those things directly can be toxic. Secondly, these things form a coating or have an edge. And on that edge, we can get other substances like other toxins that can bind to that. So what we find is some things you put in the water and fish will go like, oh, damn, that sucks. I'm not going to eat that. But after a little while, it starts to grow a little bit of algae. It starts to get a little fuzz.
So it
starts
looks
to get
more appetizing.
Yeah, and so it seems like, oh, this tastes good. I'm going to eat this. And so in some cases, there's just a study that came out just this week. Some colleagues out in Hawaii found that fish have way higher little larval fish, the baby little guys in the base of the food chain. Those guys are ingesting way more plastic than is in the surrounding water. So they're selectively sucking it out and they're eating it. So that's going to have all kinds of consequences with development. Right. So it can screw with their sex, it can screw with their physiology, it can screw with all this kind of stuff. And then and again, this is just happening. We're just getting into this, but there's also been the suggestion. We know that some of these substances can now pass the blood-brain barrier and can get into your brain. And so we have some data from a model system, which is a fish that we grow to do experiments on, and they actually found changes in behavior from polystyrene beads. So little styrofoam beads, when these fish ingest this, there's different brain activity.
Well,
Oh my
Sean, the
gosh.
passing bell just rang, and we have to end class.
Yeah, I know. This is a fascinating
unbelievable.
conversation.
So the answer
Go
is
for it.
we can have an effect on this.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things that people sometimes get totally depressed and like,
Right.
what the hell are we doing?
Yeah, what are we gonna do? Yeah.
Get angry.
Yeah.
There are different approaches that we're taking that are showing to be very effective. One, you can get things like this, which is a little thing you can throw in your washing machine, or a filter you
Oh,
can
that
put on your
absorbs
washing machine.
the
That's gonna
microfibers, yeah.
take those fibers out. So it's not going to clean them 100%, but it's going to greatly reduce them.
Okay.
Secondly, there's all kinds of wonderful legislation that's coming along, and I'm an environmentalist, and so people are like, oh yeah, the guy wants to make more rules. I hate rules
Right.
unless they
Right.
work, right?
Right.
And so one of the things that was defeated, people hear about plastic bag ban straws and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Let's get rid of those, but that's really more making people aware of the problem. But a new bill that didn't quite pass, but is going to be reintroduced in the state of California this next legislative session, is about our so-called circular economy. So the real issue is, why do we make all this energy to make a straw that we use for once and throw it away?
Right.
And so it's so
Single-use
trying
stuff,
to
yeah.
push us away from this.
Right.
So cheap is very expensive.
Yeah, it is. Well, this has been a fascinating
Fascinating conversation.
conversation, and we appreciate you coming in so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
being
Come
here.
back, and
Okay, good.
We'll pick it up from here.
Yes.
All right?
Good. Thanks for the interest.
Great
Yes.
to have you here.
We'll be right back.